YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with another Terrible Take Tuesday new series that started last week. Basically, we take some terrible takes in the sports world out there. So far, we've only done NFL, and we discuss them here. You guys also can submit terrible takes that you find, which some of you did. And to do that, you can go to our Twitter, and the DMs are open. And the couple of you that did that, you'll be getting a shout out in this video, and anybody that does in the future. If I like it, they'll be in the video and you'll get a shout out. So 40K is also our subscriber goal. Daily sports videos, full NFL coverage in season. Cannot wait for that. Clean that like button, we much appreciated. And once again, there's our Twitter in the top right. DMs are open. And there's a link in the description for that Twitter as well to make it easy for you. So Terrible Take Tuesday. Gonna enjoy this one. Let's start with at the top here. What we got first? We got the top NFL quarterbacks of all time by Bleacher Report, and a lot wrong with this. Somebody submitted this in the DMs. We'll shout them out in a second here. But first, kind of what I've picked up from this. First thing is that Brad Johnson? That's the first thing I saw. So that's Brad Johnson on the left. What the hell is Brad Johnson doing on there? I'm thinking he's in the top 25. I'm scanning through the top 25. He's not even in there, which I'm not saying he should be in there, but why did they picture him? That's what am I missing here? It almost seems like a YouTube thumbnail. You kind of show a guy that could be, or maybe most would expect to be, or maybe most would expect not to be in the top 25, but could be. And that's almost what it seems like, almost like clickbait, but it's not a video. You're already showing the rankings. It was very strange. Don't get me wrong, Brad Johnson had himself a solid career. Buccaneers, Vikings. Kind of funny they put him in here. Not really sure what made him think to do that. And the funniest part is they got him in, the most recent Vikings uniform he played in. So when he went back to the Vikings, kind of when his career was coming to an end. I thought that was just the first thing that stood out to me and was interesting. Next thing that stood out to me was Alex Smith at 25. How does Alex Smith make the top 25 NFL quarterbacks of all time? I guess an accurate quarterback. Not really. I'm not really seeing an argument for him for the top 25, though. So I thought that was kind of mind-blowing. Another thing that stood out, Carson Palmer at 21. I don't think Carson Palmer cracks the list either. And then you got a couple of Packers quarterbacks in a row, 17 and 18, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. And first glance, I'm thinking they should be much higher, especially Brett Favre should be much, much higher. And then you see who's above them. Phillip Rivers is above him. I'm a Phillip Rivers fan. I'm a fan of his game. I think he should be a Hall of Famer despite not having a Super Bowl. But, I mean, being ahead of some of these guys, or mainly those two Packers there, is just mind-blowing. And Aaron Rodgers, who's playing now with him and being in the same era as Phillip Rivers, winning a Super Bowl, and I think had a better career, I guess production-wise, it's pretty wild that Phillip Rivers is ahead of him, and that Rodgers is not higher. But I think Brett Favre should be much, much higher than 17, and then Roethlisberger ahead of Rodgers too, played in the same era. I guess you can argue that one. And then Jim Kelly up there at 14. Jim Kelly should be on the list, but a lot of interceptions. I think he should be towards the bottom of the list. Steve Young could be higher. John Elway could be higher. Breeze, Warner, Bradshaw. I'm kind of going in reverse order here. And Dan Marino at 4. I think that's pretty high. I wouldn't put Dan Marino at 4. Definitely should be on this list, but 4 is a little high for me. I don't think he should be that high. Top 3 I could agree with. Brady definitely 1. I could agree with that. Maybe you can flip Montana and Manning. But there's some surprising ones on here. Going back to Alex Smith, and that was just shocking. And then I guess the disrespect for the Packers guys, right? They're right in a row. It's kind of weird how they had to put them right next to each other. I think it was done on purpose. So I was almost like thinking, is this right? Because this doesn't really look like a Bleacher Report graphic. I'm asking myself, is this real? Because it doesn't look like a Bleacher Report graphic, and it's really random and out there. So the viewer who brought this to our attention here, there's his Twitter, GMoney at Gavin Co. You can see it right there. And he DM'd me with this graphic. And he also said, as a Cowboys fan, Tony Romo doesn't even deserve top 50 QBs of all time. So appreciate you sending this my way. And I appreciate you being very honest. If you are, in fact, a Cowboys fan, which I believe that you are. But I do see some people in the comments on our videos sometimes that are saying, as an Eagles fan, I could say that you're too low on Zeke. I'm just coming up with something random, and sometimes I feel like that person's actually a Cowboys fan. I'm just giving a random example, but this person I believe is actually a Cowboys fan. And Tony Romo doesn't deserve to be in the top 50 even, and you got him at 19. So I appreciate you being very honest even about your team, about your quarterback here. Appreciate you submitting this. And yeah, Tony Romo was another one that I thought really shouldn't have been on here. Impressive career, mainly because he came out of nowhere and was unexpected, and a very good career. I just don't know if it lasted long enough, and I don't think he did enough in the playoffs. Didn't really clutch up when he needed to in the playoffs to be deserving of top 25, and then let alone number 19. Maybe not as surprising as Alex Smith being on here, Carson Palmer maybe, but yeah, that was surprising. So appreciate you bringing that to my attention. We're on to the next couple terrible takes here. This one we're a little late on because this was a while ago before we started doing Terrible Take Tuesday. But Adam Rank made some ridiculous record predictions a while ago, and we got to talk about them. Brady Polk on Twitter, there's his handle. He sent this our way, so appreciate you very much. And I'm talking about four different teams here. He had a lot of whack record predictions. Got to respect his opinion, though, but he had a lot of whacked ones, and I'm going to talk about four teams that I didn't really agree with here. The Titans being the first one at 3-13. And I think people sleep on the Titans a little bit. I think they just think of the Titans and you just think 9-7. They're probably going to finish 9-7. They're just an average team. But then you forget with all the injuries they had, key injuries they had. I guess other teams had maybe more total injuries, but key impact injuries they were the last game of the year away from making the playoffs. And they had to play with the backup quarterback. So, if healthy, it's a solid team. Some young guys that can step up. I think a pretty complete team. They don't have any. Derrick Henry could wow at times. Jarrell Casey, but there's no big time elite talents. I guess Delaney Walker if he's healthy, but no crazy elite talent. Or Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard is probably elite safety. So I forgot about that one for just a split second. But there's not an insane amount of superstar talent is what I'm getting at. But a very complete team if healthy. I think they can be a playoff team. So 3-13 is pretty crazy. Browns week 1. They can lose. I guess that's a pretty tough schedule. You look at the first 4. I guess it's realistic they can lose all 4. But the Titans at full strength, full health week 1, and not just week 1, early in the season, it's a tough team to play. You rather play them later than earlier because they may be hurt at the end of the season. Seems like they always beat the Jags. It doesn't necessarily mean they beat the Jags twice, but he has them losing to them twice. That really stood out to me. Just random being they can beat the Chargers. Not saying they can't, but it's random how he has them losing to all these random teams and then beating the Chargers. I guess the Titans kind of do that. They play better against better teams and lose against random teams. So I guess that's realistic. I just don't see them going on these losing streaks. They end the year with an 8-game losing streak. One of them to the Jags, like I mentioned, they seem like they always beat them. But again, that doesn't mean they're going to go 2-0 against them. But I don't see 0-2. I don't see them a part of that 8-game losing streak there, along with the Texans twice, who they did beat with Blaine Gabbert once last year. The Raiders, it's tough. I guess if they continue to have these crazy injuries and they start earlier than normal, which I think they started week 1 last year anyways, I guess maybe. I just don't see it really though. So the Titans were one of them that stood out. Another team that I guess could struggle this year, but the Broncos winning 2 games. So you're possibly saying the Broncos get the first overall pick in the draft, which would be, I think they would like Justin Herbert, throw the quarterback into that mix. But I think the rest of this team, mainly the defense, is just too complete and too good, really, the defense, to only win 2 games. We've seen teams plenty of times in the past that had struggling offenses, but just won so many games because of their defense. And the Broncos could be one of those teams. Look at not that the Ravens struggle on offense. Same with the Bears. They put up some offense, but mainly defensive heavy teams that the Broncos could be like this year. So it was kind of surprising. Just got another team that go on a huge losing streak. What do you got? Week 7, 8, 9. Get a bye-in at 10, so 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that's another 8-game losing streak. Just like the Titans, he's just really confident about his losing streaks. It almost felt like, you got to respect him, but it almost felt like he didn't do anything prior to this. He kind of just went and clicked the buttons on the screen. I hate bashing somebody like that, but that's what it looked like to me. Could be wrong, but the Broncos are going to win. They're not going to. a team like this, even if they do struggle, which is possible because they don't have the most offense, they got a new coach who I like the hiring, but everything's kind of fresh there. They could struggle, but a team with a defense like that, even if it's not as expected, like top 5, maybe it's definitely going to be top 10, a defense will not go on a losing streak like that. They will win games purely off defense. You look at even the Vikings game. The Vikings could be a good team, and they're in Minnesota. That's going to be a defensive battle. Whatever defense shows up that day will win that game. So, same with the Bills game. Back-to-back there. I guess tough schedule, very tough schedule, but I just don't see 2 wins. A little ridiculous. And then another team, the Niners, he had them going 3-13, and I'm not really on board with some Niners fans. They're confident, they're overly confident. I can respect it. Maybe I'm not on board with that, but I'm way higher than 3 wins. Jimmy Garoppolo needs to prove me something, so I'm not sold on that offense being anything special, but it's not gonna be bad. It's gonna be a solid offense with Shanahan. They got a number of running backs that can play. But then mainly the big reason they're not gonna win, they're gonna win more than 3 games, because I think they got a really good pass rush. You know how important pass rush is. I just don't see 3. Even if they're really beat up again, I see more than they were beat up last year. If they're beat up again, which is realistic, but what's not realistic is just 3 wins. I still think they stay healthy. Hopefully Nick Bosa can stay healthy. I mean, I know Niners fans don't like the first game against Bucs. They lose. I think it's realistic that anybody can lose in week 1. You never know what's gonna happen on week 1, so I won't talk about that one much. It's just another big losing streak. You got a losing streak of 5, and then you beat the Cardinals, and then you got a losing streak of 6. Like he's very confident in his losing streaks with some of these teams. It's very strange. I guess tough schedule. That last 6, I guess it's realistic. You look matchup by matchup, it's realistic they can lose those, but it's just tough to see all 6 in a row. So I thought that was very interesting. I think with the pass rush, as long as it's healthy, they can win more games. And then one more, he did my Vikings dirty. He did them real dirty. 5 wins. I mean, the Vikings had their injuries and their struggles last year. So I guess the struggles and injuries can continue. The offensive line struggles, maybe the quarterback play. I mean, Kirk was solid early in the year, bad at the end of the year. So I guess that can continue. But even with that, I just don't think 5 wins. I think this team is built, way better than this. I just think something. I mean, Kirk Cousins must be hurt for them to go 5-11. I really think so. He must be out of most of the games in the season. If they went 5-11, that's just gonna be. I'd be shocked. Something that wouldn't shock me is a repeat of last year. Something else that wouldn't shock me is a repeat of 2 years ago. So they kind of have that big range, but I just dropping down to 5 wins is a little much. That roster, I think, is too good. They have the defense, they have the pass rush, they have the talent if they're healthy on offense. The receivers, the running backs. So I mean, I guess they can lose the first. You look at Falcons and Packers. I mean, they definitely can start 0-2, being the Raiders. So it starts off somewhat realistic, even though it's not good losing to the Bears there. Eagles, Lions, I guess that's doable. But then that really what stands out to me here that doesn't make sense is that ending the season on that 4-game losing streak. I just don't think that happens. And like I said, I think those 2 losing streaks he had him going on. I think it's possible, but I just don't see it happening. I think they win one of those Falcons-Packers game. They win one of those Eagles-Lions game up there. The Cowboys game on Thursday night is going to be a good one. So tough schedule. So I guess he picked out the tough schedules to make teams lose a lot of games here. I just don't see these streaks happening for really any of them. So again, thanks to Brady Polk there. There's his Twitter for pointing this out to me for Terrible Take Tuesday. Again, our DMs are open for next week and plenty of weeks to come. But I got one more kind of just something interesting that I want to talk about that I kind of saw, and most of you probably saw there on Twitter, and it was USA Today Sports. They make these predictions every year. It seems like they had the same exact graphic for the last 10 years. So I always enjoy seeing it. And so I just want to talk about it. I don't really think there's any crazy, super terrible takes. And there's some, and to point out, this is USA Today's predictions, and the two teams they have highlighted, the Chargers and the Eagles, that's their Super Bowl prediction. So they have Chargers over Eagles in the Super Bowl. So I wanted to make that clear. But interesting takes. Just like Adam Rank, he had the Broncos having a pretty terrible season, a little better at 4-12. I just see them with that defense winning more than that. So that was interesting, but they could struggle on offense. So it's not a super, super terrible take. Notice the Niners over the Rams, questionable. I made a kind of a bold prediction that the Rams could win that division with Blake Bortles. I still think that's possible. If the Niners stay fully healthy, they definitely can win that division. He also has the Rams making the playoffs. So for the NFC, you see the division winners and the wild cards have a star next to their name. So the wild cards are the Bears and the Saints. The AFC wild cards are the Chiefs and the Jags. So the Rams go 9-7, miss the playoffs. There's something, kind of in the back of my mind about the Rams that scares me. First off, it's a good team, talent everywhere, well coached, and I don't think their division's super tough. So all those signs point to, and they just went to the Super Bowl. All those signs point to them being good, being back in the playoffs. But the one thing that I guess maybe this person of USA Today is kind of thinking the same thing. Their offensive line is a little scary to me because they were elite early last year. As the season went on, it kind of went down a little bit, and I think the reason for that is the age of that offensive line. It kind of went down, and we saw against good defenses in the Super Bowl that the pressure really got to Goff, and he really couldn't handle it all that well. He's a good quarterback. He needs to work on his decision-making under pressure. And then they lose Saffold, and they got to throw some young guys in here with the other veterans. So what's sticking in the back of my mind is the offensive line could struggle. I think it'll start off strong in the early in the year, but I think we could see something similar to last year where it could go downhill a little bit. So could that hurt them down the line there? So that's something that's sticking with me. I do think a very good season from the Rams is coming, though. The Vikings tied with the best record, so the complete opposite of Adam Rank. And I think it's possible that they're that good. I think we can go back to 2 years ago because they have a really good roster. I mean, they built this roster to win a Super Bowl, and just before last year, everyone was predicting them to win a Super Bowl. I mean, we're only a year apart here, so I think it's possible. It's just kind of interesting to me that he had them finishing tied the best record with the Chargers. Not a lot of people have that. I actually think it's interesting because I think a lot of people are starting to believe in the Vikings again right now. I think same people that made predictions a little earlier in this offseason kind of just had Bears or even Packers. But I think now people are starting to go back and change their mind and be like, the Vikings actually could get back to what we thought they were going to be. But then there's still the people that believe in Aaron Rodgers, and all credible too. It's all realistic. And then the people who saw the Bears last year and they think Trubisky can improve, all very realistic. I'm not disagreeing with any of it. But my point is I think people are starting to go back to the Vikings a little bit, and I don't rule out the Lions either. And then kind of brings me to that. The Lions winning 3 games. I see them winning much more than 3. The only reason if they have a under 500 record is just because they're playing the Vikings twice, the Bears twice, the Packers twice. That's tough. But they're a solid team, I think. I think they're pretty complete. I like Patricia as a coach. We saw how much the defense, how much better they were getting as season went on. Because I think it has to do with Patricia. I guess it's on the offense. Stafford has his weapons. I think it's time to execute there. But, as a Vikings fan, you look at it this way, you would think I would be comfortable playing the Lions. A 12-win team, 3-win team projected. You think I would think we're going to win 2. No way we're going to lose both. We'll win at least 1 against the Lions. I don't really feel that way. I'm confident in my team, but it's an anybody can win situation every time we play the Lions, every time we play the Bears and the Packers. So I think they can win way more than 3 games. Then they can actually surprise everyone, win the division. That wouldn't be my prediction, but I think it's possible. The Falcons over the Saints, not completely out there because the Falcons were a top-tier team a couple years ago. They had a bunch of injuries that put them down. Last year, offensive line play put them down. So it's possible, and I just don't really see. I think the Saints are the better team. I think the league also owes them one, but even if they didn't, I just think the Saints are the better team. But the Falcons could be back. That Super Bowl year, that was a great year, and they're still right there. To me, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. I think people act like 2-3 years ago was just such a long time ago. The team can't be that again. I think it applies with quite a few teams this year. So possible, but my pick would be the Saints. The Redskins at 3-13. Maybe I was a little too hyped on the Redskins after their draft. I was believing them, and I still believe in them, but maybe I was a little too hyped then. I'll revisit my final predictions. I'll make my final predictions for division by division and playoff Super Bowl right before the season starts. Maybe I was a little hyped on them, but they're a good team. They're much better than three wins. I think they're a pretty complete team. They could get better in some spots. I was surprised to see they released Mason Foster early this morning, but they drafted very well. So They'll figure it out. They got a plan. I think they'll win much more than 3 games. I'd be surprised if they were under the Giants there. So that surprised me. And then kind of going back to the teams with 3-13, there's 5 teams. 2 of them surprised me with the Lions and the Redskins, but 5 total teams being the Bengals. I think the Bengals will win more than that too. I was starting to get on the Bengals hype train too because they had some power on offense that people really are underrated, not talking about. They got legit weapons, and Dalton, when healthy, can play. But then now the offensive line kind of being a mess is really scaring me. So 3-13 really isn't crazy out there, but I think they win more than 3 games. And Miami, it's possible, even though I think people are sleeping on their defense. Arizona, it's possible, even though they could be a game plan nightmare and could win games purely off that. We talked about the Lions and the Redskins. So just 5 teams at 3-13 exactly seems surprising. No team under that. It's just a bunch of teams at 3-13. 1 team at 4-12. 1 team at 5-11, I believe. Yeah, it's just a little weird to me. I guess possible, but a lot of this is weird. I don't know if any of this is terrible takes. Just thought it would be something to discuss, get your guys' thoughts. I think those 2 teams winning only 3 games is pretty terrible, and having 5, I think that's pretty terrible. The other ones aren't that terrible at all, I guess. Just hot takes, interesting takes. So once again, if you have any takes you find from now till next week, or maybe you want to submit the week after, you can always go to our Twitter, DM me. They're open. So if it's a tweet, you see an expert or anybody tweet something that's just terrible, a terrible take, I'll use that. That'll be pretty cool. Anything, just anything at all. You see a comment in our videos and you want to screenshot it and you think it's just stupidity, I'll use that. We'll call somebody out right here on Terrible Take Tuesday. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We got plenty of predictions on the channel, more to come. Full coverage in season for the NFL. Weekly picks, score predictions, recaps, power rankings, all kinds of stuff. It's going to be fun. So hopefully you can join us for all that. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.